Welcome back to Horror Galore. And this thing is not a painting, or this is a CED. We gotta take a step back because before DVDs, you had VHS. For VHS, you had things on a reel, like a projector, which is why they're called film. Why it's a horror film. Now they're horror movies because it's not on film; it's a digital thing. You see, RCA was trying to develop a way in 1964 to make vinyl records be a way that you can watch movies. Don't know what a vinyl record is? That's a case of one. And they come in three sizes: large, medium, and small. Now, this is the 7-inch, a 9-inch, and a 12-inch. You play them on the exact same thing, which is called a phonograph, or more commonly called a record player. And the actual record itself, at one point they were made out of steel, and then they started making them out of actually vinyl, which is why it's called a vinyl record. And it's called a vinyl record to distinguish it from the steel records. Nobody makes steel records anymore, so at this point we can stop calling them vinyl records. But that's just a name that has stuck. Anyway, inside of one of these packages, you will find the actual, sometimes a little more difficult to get. This is the actual record. Now there's correct way of handling them, and you're not supposed to be just touching it. Just like a DVD or CD, your fingerprints will screw things up. Particularly with this, the acid, the oils on your skin will actually wear down the vinyl faster, and any dirt on your skin, on your fingers, will be pressed into it, screwing up the recording. Because there's a needle, this spins, this thing spins, right? And a needle scratches over it, picking up the vibrations, giving you music. The same principle with this. Difference is that it's not, I think it's actually made of PVC. Yeah, because the walls of the vinyl record are like that. Right, so that's the inside where the needle would sit. So right next to it is like that. That's the next line. You can't do that with this because when you're playing it faster, which you would need to go faster, it would start to heat up and the walls would start wobbling and melting. So they couldn't use vinyl, and they had to use, I think it was PVC. So the development of this in 1964, before Betamax and VHS even came out, they came out, this was still in development, it didn't show up until 1981, which Laserdisc was already out, and then it was canceled in 1984. And then 1986, they stopped releasing anything on CED. This is the only one that I have, and I only recently got this. In fact, it's the week that I'm filming this is when I've had it. I've only had it for like 3 days. Actually, no, not even 3 days. I got it yesterday. I came home from work and it was here already. eBay is an amazing place to shop. And this is something that I did not hear about until I think it may have been Techno Moan had done a video on it. But then I didn't really get interested into it until Technology Connections did a video on it. And then I went and bought one. So he's the one that inspired me to buy one. I was like, oh, I wonder if they got horror movies on there. Boom. So as you can see, it's Friday the 13th. Now, this particular version of Friday the 13th on CED, I cannot watch. Because you need a special player for this. And this thing It's unlike a record where you take out the disc and you put it on, put the arm on, and then it plays, right? It would play. This now the actual thing that you came to see. Well, maybe you came to see that. I don't know. Oh, and this is like it has weight to it. This is, without weighing it, I'd say it's about 7 pounds. This is about 7 pounds, and it's, you can see that this is big. It takes up a lot of room on your desk. This ain't, this ain't fitting in a shelf. It's not gonna fit. In fact, it's 2 spaces. That's one of the positives about when we, as a nation, switched from records to CDs. They take up less room. I can have more of them in the exact same amount of space. Underworld and Underworld Evolution. These are 2 movies that have never been put on CED because they weren't filmed at that point. But anyway, Underworld is a good movie. It's a good action horror movie. It draws on action a lot more, but it's still a horror movie because there's vampires in it. Evolution is also good. It builds on the fact that there's a hybrid werewolf vampire, or in this case, a lichen vampire. Problem is, that concept should have been done different. I think it should have been done differently, that Michael, who's the werewolf that gets bit by a vampire, he should not have, I think the character should have shown up towards the end of the film, and then he would have been the main focus of Evolution, and do it as a 2-movie arc. Or if you plan on doing it as a trilogy, then you do in Evolution, then their love story takes place, and then the child at the end. These 2 movies have the same lead writer, completely different directors, completely different producers. So this is a problem with many franchises. That too many fingers are trying to get, like, too many hands are in the cookie jar. Too many people are trying to do something. You have this. These 2 movies are written. The lead writer is the same person. Okay. This movie had a different lead writer. The guy who wrote the other 2 is on the writing team, because many movies you got 1 writer, or maybe 2. These Underworld has like 6 people writing it. There's 6 writers, about 6 writers, and so the guy who wrote Underworld 1 and 2 is now on the back burner. Someone else is in charge. So we get a prequel. It's good. It should have been first, because it shows us this dude who was a werewolf, and he worked for, basically, they were slaves. All the lichens were slaves, and they break free because of him. So that starts off the war between the lichens and the vampires. I'm going to continuously say werewolves instead of lichens and correct myself, so bear with it. So this is the beginning of the war, and the beginning of the reason why Victor, Dracula Lord Victor, likes Selena, who's the main character in all the other films, because it reminds him of his original daughter. That should have been explained first. If it was actually that important to tell us about his old daughter, you should have told it first, because now it's backwards, and now it really seems like Kate didn't want to do a movie, so they got that chick to do it and rewrote it. That's what it comes out. That's what I feel like this was. She didn't want to be involved. She did, however, get involved for this movie. And remember I said that the first film and the second had the same writer? That lead writer is back. which is why this is not a bad movie. I actually, of them, this was the one that it felt more like it felt more real. The first two felt like they were comic book adaptations. The second one felt like it was trying to be a Lord of the Rings thing and start up a big franchise. And this just felt more like a real, like more down to earth. You have and you know, there was a war between apparently the Lycans. They got into power and they declared that vampires exist and started hunting them down while she was sleeping this entire time. So there's a black guy who's one of those people that I've seen him a bunch of times. I have no clue what his name is. He's a cop and he winds up helping her, and because of that human helping the vampire whose wife was a vampire, and then she was killed by Lycans, so he hates them. That aspect was good. It was something you could connect with. And all of that is completely gone when you get to the next film, which I don't have on DVD. I have it on Blu-ray. So, when we get to Blood Wars, that was a shit movie. But this was good. This, however, I felt like it should have been cut by 20 minutes. I specifically remember sitting in the theater and just thinking, okay, I would end it now. And, oh, fades to black. Alright, that's the end of it. Oh, it's still going. It just fade to black. Oh, okay, this is the end of it. What? And then she says, oh, well, I told my daughter to leave and never tell me where she's going. Boom. Oh, it's still going. Shit, would you fucking end this film already? God! And it turns out it actually wasn't that long. Each Underworld film is actually shorter. Every time they make one, it becomes shorter. The first one, I don't remember the time, but I think it was, let's just say it was 102, then the next one was 95, and then it's Rise of the Lycans, I think, was like 91 minutes, and then this was 86, but this feels longer than all of them. I find that strange, that they're getting shorter. Could be that the writers are running out of things to do. That is all of the use. And so now we have something that is, again, not really supposed to be here, but because it's a Xbox 360 game for Splatterhouse. This, I thought, was actually a port of the Sega Genesis game Splatterhouse. But then when I was doing research on it, after I bought it, I'm like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Oh, Splatterhouse was NES. What we played on Genesis was Splatterhouse 2. I didn't even realize that. I never realized that I always had the sequel. In Splatterhouse, and as I was doing research about this game, it turns out that somebody wanted to make a Jason Voorhees game. And they couldn't get the licenses. The game most of it was done. So which is why the main character has a hockey mask. That's the only reason why he has a hockey mask. It was supposed to be Friday the 13th game, where you would play as Jason and go around killing people. Nowadays you can do that because there is a Friday the 13th video game, and you do get to play as Jason. But it's more like tag, and Jason's it. But this one, not like that. I didn't really like it. Actually, I only played it for a few days. Then my brother borrowed it, and I got it back about a year later. And I think he played it for a few months, but then forgot to hand it back. Fine, whatever. At least somebody used it, you know. I mean, I did buy it used. I have no idea if that person actually played it long, or they played it and went, oh, this is shit, and then sold it back to GameStop. So now, with that done, Welcome to John Carpenter's Vampires. We're in the V section. I paid $3.99 for this movie, which also means that I bought it used. But this is a group of people who hunt vampires, and there's a lot of action behind it. So it's really, because it's vampires, therefore it's horror. And much like Underworld and Twilight, they're not scary films. And horror should be somewhat scary. And same thing with this. There's 2 jump scenes. That's something. And, Underworld doesn't have anything like that. And Twilight certainly is not intended to be horror. Which is why I think if it's vampires, vampires, werewolves, and Frankenstein, or any sort of creature that has been made by humans, should be in a different genre entirely, like a subgenre. But it's not. So anyway, this, I had said, was the 3rd installment in a John Carpenter's End of the World trilogy, and after I did that video, I was thinking, it's called the Armageddon trilogy, and it's not vampires. The first movie is The Thing, then it's Prince of Darkness, and then a movie I've never even seen. So I had thought it was vampires. I was wrong. It's like, you like seeing guys go around with crossbows shooting vampires, and it being a serious film, not a Quentin Tarantino movie, then it's good. So that's all I gotta say about that. So on to the next one. This particular film is not in English at all. The title screen is English, but they don't speak English because this movie came out of South Korea. Yeah, it actually falls into the genre of Korean horror because the voice, there's no the to this. This is, I think it's number 3 or number 4 in the Whispering Corridors franchise. It's in the school, all girls school. I think it's all girls school, but it revolves around girls. There's a ghost involved, and there's actually a scene where a piece of paper slides by and goes and slits the person's throat. Because it's a supernatural horror. It's actually good, but you're going to have to read on the bottom of the screen what they're saying because they don't English dub this film. I'm actually not even sure if it was ever released in the U.S. I just know it's actually a pretty good movie. And for being the first ever Korean film that I've ever bought or ever watched, I was like, wow. They really know how to set the tone. Every time you got high school students in a movie, they wind up in the bathroom. They don't go in the bathroom in this. They went into the boiler room. I thought there was a better setting. Now, to the next. This is definitely one that I'd say no one watching this has heard of The Violent Kind. It is a supernatural horror movie sort of thing, but it takes a long time to get to where it's gotta go. It does. And it's a biker club, right? They're going off to they got a cabin all the way out in the woods. It's a big cabin, so it's not a little one. There's maybe 200 people there for this party. I think one of the founding members' birthday parties. So they're having a big shindig. And got this guy who you can't see his face. He's born in, proud to be in, and then Cody is essentially the protagonist of the film. He's born in, but he's not really into the violence aspect of it. He's more of a goofy kind of person. He's like the good guy, born in the bad group. Well, shit starts going weird. People start getting killed after the party's over, and it's not really explained if they're. When I watched this with somebody else, they were like, "Oh no, those are aliens because of this," and I'm like, "No, I don't think it was aliens. It's not really explained if they're aliens or if they're demons." But they specifically love the 1950s. For some reason, the antagonist, the main villain, is just like he's from the 50s, and he's talking about James Dean. In fact, in it, the two antagonist protagonist, they have to have a switchblade fight that is supposed to be identical to Rebel Without a Cause. One of the people has never seen that film. And it's not just me, it's the guy Cody. He doesn't know what the hell that is. He didn't live through the 50s. And I thought that was a really interesting twist, that the villains are all these children that have gone missing since like the 1920s. And it just like it really winds up being, towards the end, a completely different film. In a good way. Because it's towards the end of the film that I think it gets its best. All the better parts are at the end of the film, when the villains, the antagonist, is there. Other than that, it's really just like a throwaway episode of Sons of Anarchy. So, with all that said, that is the end of the video. Well, almost the end of the video, because I gotta do the outro stuff. If you liked it, give a like. If you want to support the channel, please do so on Patreon. I'm only asking for either $1 or $5. It's up to you. I'm giving you the option. I'm not greedy. And you can follow on Twitter and Instagram. And if you're not subscribed, please do so you can see more of these and other videos that I do. Stay tuned for that, and keep a lookout on the channel for more Horror Galore and this year's highest grossing horror film, which will be coming out. That's a list video that will be coming out, I think, on Halloween or the day before. I think it probably is on Halloween. And that's it for this. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. Ooh, bless my soul.